Shalom, shalom. This your brother Anya out of ATL Atlanta. Right back with the Lashawam qadash lessons. Always with the lessons, right? So today, um, I was trying to reiterate something that Hebrew writing is different. And I was trying to find a word in my last lesson, and I found it out. I looked it up. It's formal and informal writing. So it's different ways of how to write formally and informally in the Hebrew, but it still means the same thing. It's still getting to the same point. Formal is more of where you're writing it out all the way. Formal is going to be a longer sentence than informal. For so like for instance, some of the commandments out of the Ten Commandments, right? From when Moses got off the stone, got out of Mount Sinai and brought the two stones, Salakia, he said one thing: "Thou shalt not kill, or thou shalt not murder." Ratazak, thou shalt not murder, right? So right there is la'ata ratazak, la'ata ratazak, right? When you put tha in front of something, it pertains to a person or to a noun. So it's talking about tha ratazak, that means you ratazak. So if I say tha ratazak, that means you murdered. Instead of saying a tha ratazak. A tha ratazak is more formal. Informal would be tha ratazak. So informal writing would be la'a tha ratazak. Formal would be la'a atha ratazak. No, you murder, right? Or you know murder, right? So we're gonna write informal and formal sentences today, Israel, to give you understanding, just in case you run across a lot of informal sentences when you're going through, the Paleo, Old Testament Paleo Hebrew.com, and you're looking over a lot of Lashawam qadash, and you're like, well, I'm trying to find out what that means. So you got to get like the best understanding you can, and your Ake and y'all is going to try to put you on game, right? And I hope a lot of you are doing your own studies or actually going through the whole video, or at least, segments, and then going back, checking and working, and then going back to finish it, right? You know, this is when I come out with these teachings, it's more of like a sit down. You have to sit down and pay attention to it so you can, it marinates with you, so it can stick with you. It's not something that you can hear on the fly. You need time for certain videos like this. Most High willing, I might get creative and make these videos short, 10, 15 minutes. But right now, when you look at these lives, you have to have your whole heart and attention in it. All right, I'm gonna grab we're gonna grab my eraser rack real quick. My little spray juice, right? Now I got some new markers too. I was running out. I know it's been a minute, Israel, shalom, shalom. So we're gonna work on formal. I got an IG. My IG is Awaken Judah. It's Awaken Judah. Maybe I could write it down real quick. So this is what my Instagram would be. It'd be Awaken Judah. Awaken Judah with the little underline. So it's Awaken underline Judah. right? So awaken Judah, and sometimes I'll have like on my IG, I have like little Paleo Hebrew questions like what does this Hebrew word means, which is this Hebrew word, and it's a new little like questionnaire thing on there where it's like four different questions. It's kind of like a little test, right? And every now and then I throw it up on there. I don't do it as often. I should do it more. Israel, if you want more, you got to get on me about more. I should do it more. I try to make it sensible to do it more. But I put up little Paleo Hebrew questions. What does this Hebrew word mean? What is this Hebrew or English equivalent is? And Yashrola kind of likes that. They're really with it. But today or tonight, la yala, or tonight, we're gonna talk about informal and formal Paleo Hebrew sentences, right? So let's get Exodus 20 and 13, right? This is Exodus 20 and 13. I wrote that backwards, right? I wrote my Instagram backwards. So Exodus 20 and 13 says, "Thou shalt not kill." So it says, "Thou shalt not kill," and the Lashawam qadash it is la'a tharatazak. This is how they wrote it. So that's the transliteration for "Thou shalt not kill." La'atha ratazak. So just like I said, that tha right there is informal, right? It's very informal. It's not formal. Formal is more of a drawn out sentence. Instead of putting a tha, they put tha ratazak. So when you put tha in front of a Hebrew word, let's say uh, ta'aha, that means you love. Or in this sentence, tha that means you murder. But instead of putting a tha which is formal, in the Paleo Hebrew, tha is informal. So there's certain, like the more and more you go over the Paleo Hebrew, is certain rules that you have to abide by, or certain rules that you must know if you want to write. Just, I'm going to show you more of a clear, more formal. I like to write more formal. If you want to write informal, I'm still going to show you how to teach that. I'm still going to teach that. But just know my agenda is to go more formal. But you would need to know the informal if you're going over the Lashawam qadash on old Paleo Hebrew, oldpaleohebrew.com. You're going to have a lot of that. So that in the Paleo Hebrew is this. So That's what that is in the Paleo Hebrew. La'a tha ratazak. So we all know that ratazak by itself is what murder is. You know, tha ratazak is not a complete word of itself. So we're making ratazak informal in an informal sentence, tha ratazak into an informal sentence by adding tha in the beginning of it, which pertains to a noun. So, or you know, a person, or pertains to somebody. You know, if I just say ratazak, I'm just saying murder. But if I say tha ratazak, I mean you murdered. But that's the informal way to say of it, the quicker way to say of it. You know, even in English, we we develop like slang or sayings. This is just an informal way of how to write. You know how we say, you know what I mean. You know, Esau say, you know what I mean, right? But we say, nah, I mean, right? So this is our nah, I mean right here, man. This is our nah, I mean right here, man. So you know how Israel is. We the salt of the earth. Sometimes we know when to be formal and when to be informal, right? So I'm going to show another informal example. So we're going to go over Exodus 14, right? 20 and 14, which is thou shalt not commit adultery, right? Right? So in the Hebrew, well, in the English is thou shalt not commit adultery, right? But let's put in a transliteration, which is la right? So the transliteration is la a tha nap. La a tha nap. So it's na, right? So this is another informal way to put you commit adultery, right? You adultery. You adultery. Tha nap. Instead of saying a tha nap, you adultery, which we all know a tha nap, or let's say I switched around and made it personal or possessive, saying, you know, for me, Anya or Awathaya na naat, right? Or Awathaya, uh, Awathaya Ratazak, right? Me murder, or Anya, I murder, Anya Ratazak, or Anya Anap, right? So that's formal. But we're going over the informal, which it would just be best to say thought for, you know, concerning to someone else. So far, I've seen is that tha nap, which is instead of saying a thought, it's thought. So tha na'at, you adultery. So it's saying la'a, no, you adultery, right? That's what it's saying. No, you adultery. Now, we're gonna go over the informal, and then we're gonna go over the formal. And the formal is just way, it's easier. I mean, it's like the way this is almost like Spanish, and it's kind of funny. Because Spanish is kind of written in the same way, where you will have, you know, no in the front, you know, instead of saying, people say in Spanish no comprende, or they'll say instead of saying comprende me no. So comprende me no is like, or my bad, me no comprende, right? I don't know, right? Or I not know, right? But people say no comprende, meaning like no comprehend. So it's kind of like the same way. But in English, it's different. In English, you'll be like, I don't comprehend, or I don't know, or I know not, right? So it's kind of a little bit kind of like Spanish for our Northern Kingdom brothers and sisters who come over here, you know. So we have la a, fa, na, or na, right? This is the informal way how to write. You write this is informal, right? So how you put this in a Lashawam qadash is this. So that's how you put in the Lashawam qadash. La a, la a, sa na. So sa na. La a, sa na. Which means you shall not murder, or thou shall not murder, or la a, sa na. Right? So that is the informal writing of Exodus 20 and 14. So let's do, since we did 14, let's do 15. The informal of 15. Which is thou shall not steal. So this is the informal writing of Exodus 20 and 15. Thou shall not steal. And that is la'atha gana. So that's the informal writing of Exodus 20 and 15. Thou shalt not steal, la'ah, sa, ganav. So you see here again, the tha makes it informal. Instead of making the whole word a tha, they just put tha with ganav and they slam it together. And ganav is the word that tha is being connected to. And you see that some of these Hebrew characters, you gotta really look at all of them. I wish, the old Paleo Hebrew, website was a bit better into like what is what, but I can't really like bash them of what they're doing. They did a real good job with that. It's just that let's say if I put one letter in, and that would be thought, I would quickly and swiftly learn all the aspects and all the mechanisms that thought is used in. And just like a lot of certain characters in the Hebrew alphabet, they're feminine and masculine. So they have a certain aspect or mechanism in the language itself. So I'm thinking, I'm not sure, but I'm thinking I'm using good discernment that I'm thinking about all the characters have a use or a mechanism. And thaw right here is used for informal, it has an informal mechanism, right? So using thaw, it can help you write informal if you're trying to get straight to the point or you're trying to shorten your sentence. Thaw would be a great way to do it. So, but I'm gonna still use formal because if I just throw thaw in front of ganab, I'm not sure if all brethren would know what that means. They'll look at me like, you spelled that wrong. But when you look over it and you start looking at the writings, no, I spelled that right. But it's just informal. It's not formal. So most high willing, everybody looks at this video, and if anyone likes writing informal, there'll at least be more people be notified about it, right? So how to write Exodus 20 and 15 in the Lashawam qadash in an informal manner is this way. Uh, 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 God, nah, ba. Right? Already know we connect those two. And here we go with the informal character. Right? So, la'a, tha, which is the informal character, is what makes it informal, but pertaining to a person, taking a place of a tha, but a shortened version of it, right? And being attached to the word ganab, which is still. So informal writing in the Paleo Hebrew is something that I'm kind of catching on, and brothers all know about this. Brothers that go out in the camp and brothers that teach on the block, they'll straight up tell people, well, people talk about, hey, you know what? What's your nationality? You know, okay, you an Israelite. Well, do you know the commandments? Well, I know 10. Well, tell me the 10 commandments. And they'll say, well, thou shalt not kill, right? But brothers will straight up and say, well, it's really thou shalt not murder or no murder, right? So this is the informal way to say no murder because tha, which is a Hebrew character, right? Tha is connected with ganab. This is why I like these lines. You see these lines help. If you, you can tell this is supposed to be together. But if you, put the thaw right in front of there and separated it from the ganab, you would make it less informal. We're gonna start, this is something I'm developing over the time. So that's why I'm not pushing out as many videos as I want, because I'm studying over this. I want to make this, you know, impenetrable, man, when we come to this language. So I want to learn the formal. I like the formal, but I must learn the informal because the informal is very important and it's potent. So I like and love these lines. I got the idea of the lines from a certain app. I have an app on my phone about, it has a Hebrew alphabet on it. So I use sometimes when I type the brethren, I type in the Lashawam qadash. I pay for the alpha. I think it's like the Paleo Hebrew keyboard. It has these lines in it. So what I do is I use these lines to separate words when I'm writing formal. But when you're writing informal, you have to act like that character is a part of the word, right? So I have to act like ganab. I mean, thaganab is an actual word compounded together because it's informal, right? Instead of saying, just like I brought up, instead of saying, do you know what I mean? I'm like, nah, I mean. So instead of do you know what I mean, it's two words now. Nah, mean. So that's kind of how this is because this would be three words instead of two if I put la'a, atha, ganab, right? But instead of la'a, atha, ganab, it's la'a, tha, ganab. So that tha still makes it that tha gives ganab the the sense of who it's pertaining to. It's pertaining to somebody. Because if I just said ganab, I'm just saying still. Like I walk up to you and say ganab, like still what? Or if I walk up to somebody and say ratazak, I say kill. They're like, kill what? Kill who? What? Right? They're confused. But I'm guessing because since Tharganab pertains to a Thar, you're talking about somebody, you're talking to multiple people, right? Maybe, you know, certain feminine and masculine nouns can be used the same way, but they're used different. As you can tell, they're used different. They're used at the end of a lot of Hebrew words, right? They're used at the end instead of the beginning. But in this sense, in informal writing, they're used in the beginning. Tha is used in the beginning. For you, right? Instead of saying a tha with aleph and then tha, it's just tha. So when I went over a lot, or I guess a couple, just a couple of informal Hebrew writings, on the old paleo, you know, Old Testament paleo.com, I started to learn how this was used, how they used informal writing. And this is something that we definitely want to go over. It's like the informal writing and the formal. Um, a lot of what I've been putting out is formal writing, but the informal is needed, especially let's say if you wanted to save space, or if someone just likes writing informal. Because apparently Moses loved writing informal, or the scribes of Moses, the Levites, wrote informal sometimes. Sometimes you got to get swift and straight to the point. Sometimes you don't have time to just ramble on and, you know, digress like I am right now. So I always ponder on these things, wondering like, why not only informal? But I believe just about every language has an informal way of writing. And it would be foolish of me not to go over it, all the informal ways that our ancestors wrote. So, just know this one rule. When you're dealing with informal and you throw tha in the beginning of the word, whether it be tha ganab or tha ratazak or tha na'ap, just know that treat it like it's one word when you're separating it in your writings. Don't do this. Don't. I'll show you what I'm saying. Don't do. Right. All right. You see what I did there? Don't do that. All right? Don't do that because you can get confused quickly. We don't want to separate any and every character when we're doing informal or we're doing formal, right? And when you're doing formal, it will be no need for that. You just put a thaw, right, instead of thaw. So it will be completely, it will negate the fact of writing informal if you just put thaw there instead of a thaw. You should might as well write formal instead of just putting the thaw by itself. So that's why you should treat it like a complete word. It was meant to be like that. So if you're using la tha ganab instead of making the informal sentence that I just did earlier, it negates the fact of you even writing informal. You might as well, if you do this, you might as well write formally. So let's write it informally. So that's something that's how you want to write when you write informally, right? You want it to be together. Don't have it apart. Together. Make that one because if you separate it with the lines or the brackets that I just started using and developing to separate the write more and formally, and people can comprehend my sentences easier. You can still use the lines, but don't use them when you're trying to do informal writing. When you're doing informal, is as if you're smashing it together. It's like instead of saying you know, I'm saying nah. And what I mean, I'm saying me, right? So you smacking those two together as if instead of 4 words, they're like 2 words. So when you're dealing with ganab, thaganab, you're smacking 2 words together, and that's a tha and ganab. When you're dealing with tha ratazak, you're smacking 2 words together. That is a tha and ratazak. When you're dealing with napash or tha napah, you're dealing with 2 words, a tha and napah. So you don't want to separate those when you're doing informal writing. It would just negate the whole thing. And if you're separating them with the lines or the brackets that I've started using and developing, it would negate everything that the system is about. So you might as well go with the flow. And that's good as well because it takes less away from how our ancestors did it. You don't want the lines to infringe on, the authentic or or authentic and authenticity of the Lashawam qadash, right? When you start using the lines too much, or use the lines overbearingly, you start undercutting the originality of the Lashawam qadash. You just want those lines to separate each word from one another. And if you're using these as informal words, right? If you're using them informally, like I said earlier, you're smacking 2 words together, so you have to count it as one word. You shouldn't separate the thaw from the ganab because it's one word, making it with a whole new meaning, which is just meaning you still, or a tha ratazak, meaning you kill. So it's one word meaning you kill instead of two, which is a tha ganab, meaning you still, and a tha ratazak, which means you kill. But instead of just saying those two, you smash them together to tha ratazak and tha ganab. So separating that away from that, I just wanted to say that if you're writing, if some of you are writing like you should be, when you're writing formally, I want to make sure that's clear. And that's a new rule that we set up, right? Now, we're going to do the formal way. So we're going to go back to Exodus 20 and 13. I'm going to show you how to write it formally, which is, once again, thou shalt not kill, right? So, the formal way of thou shalt not kill is this. So, this is the formal way. We went over informal. Informal's done. This is all formal, right? The formal way of Exodus 20 and 13 is Atha Dawa Ayan Ratazak, right? Atha Dawa Ayan Ratazak. So if this is you do not kill. That's the formal way of the Lashawam qadash. That's the formal way of the transliteration of the Paleo Hebrew. So you can write formally. You can, and it's real easy. That's why I love writing formally, because they'll easily look at what those words mean, and they'll get the understanding. It's almost like English, still a little bit. It's almost like English, but in the Paleo Hebrew language, right? So it's easy to write formal and still get the understanding. But if you do the informal, you have to learn a lot of, you got to learn more, right? No, it's easier, the formal, bam, 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 bam. Learn those words and what they mean, I know them. Now, if I put a thaganab, they look at thaganab, they might be like, well, I know ganab is this word, but why is that there? Is that a whole new word? Should I check and find if that's a whole new word? Can I find it? And then when they see that thaw there, they're just going to be confounded and confused, like, what does that mean? Why did they put a thaw there? Is that a mistake? No, it's how they informally wrote. But how you write thou shall not kill, or in this sense, you do not kill, formally is Atha Dawa Ayan Ratazak, right? And you can still understand what that means. I tell you, you do not kill, you're like, wow, all right, I know what you're talking about, you do not kill, right? But sometimes informally, they're like, no kill. It's like, wait, what? Why are you saying no kill? Why are you talking like a caveman, right? But sometimes you have to be quick and straight and direct with the informal writing. So when they write like that, or they write informally, they're trying to shorten it up. They're making it quick and sweet. Because you gotta understand, this man just came off a mountain with two big stones, right? He don't got all the space in the world. So he doesn't have all the space in the world to write this, and he has to write informally. So that's why I said it could be used to save space. So, thou shalt not kill, Atha Dawa Ayan Ratazak. You do not kill, right? And you can see 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's formal. It's almost like the English. It has the same amount of words, right? So it's easy to understand what that means. Now, let's write it in the Lashawam qadash. And you even see that this is congruent or similar in the Paleo Hebrew. You see this? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the formal way of writing in the Paleo Hebrew. Now, the informal way we showed you, and most are willing that you was here earlier to see it, is shorter. It's almost like it's cutting it in half, or at least 2/3. You know, that's an inside joke, right? 2/3. So when you're writing in informally, you cutting at least, you know, 1/2 to 2/3 of the sentence off, or 1/3 of the sentence. So like, you know, 1/3, right? You could leave 2/3, right? But we want to leave 1/3 in truth, right? So it's like you're taking 1/3 away from the sentence. So 1/3, or at least 1/2 away from the sentence, and you really can see the difference between the informal and the formal. Like the formal lines up with the English way easier, and it lines up with the transliteration way easier. It'll be easy for anybody who's just coming in and learning the Lashawam Kadash more to understand what that sentence is saying, because all they have to do is learn what the words are, what they mean, and they understand. Oh, this means a tha means you. Oh, dawa means do, and ayan means not, and ratazak means kill. Oh, I know what that means. But if so, you just throw up la'at ganab, or la'at tha ratazak, they'll be confused. They'll be completely confounded. So this is why I love formal writing. It helps me out. And if I was going to write more how I write, even in my book, I write formally. I don't write informally. I learn how to write informally, though, or I learn how to read informally and write informally through the Paleo, you know, the Old Testament paleo.com, and looking at how they wrote the Paleo Hebrew, especially like in Exodus 20 and 13, like we're going over right now. They wrote it informally. So it's good to know, especially when you're going into that website and look at how our ancestors wrote, because they wrote informally sometimes. They're not going to write formally always, and it's a lot of informal writing when you deal with, you know, the Paleo Hebrew and the language, dealing with the Torah. It's a lot. It's a bit of informal writing, and then you need to learn a lot of, maybe one day once I learn more, I'll learn all the aspects or all the mechanisms or duties of each character. Like we just went over, thaw. If you smack it together with a word and make it one word, it still means it works as a thaw ganab. If you smack thaw ganab together, it works as a thaw ganab. But in this way, you don't need that, because you're writing formally and they'll completely understand. Thou shalt not kill. Atha dawa ayan ratazak. Atha dawa ayan ratazak. It's real easy. It's formal, right? But the informal, it might catch up. But most are willing that if you're reading on that website, the informal part that I just did is helping you out, right? So let's go on to Exodus 14. Because most high willing, I want everybody speaking this language, man. Right? Exodus 20 and 14, formally, written formally, which is, thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not commit adultery. So this is the formal way of Exodus 20 and 14. Right? So that's the transliteration right there. Atha, Dawa, Ayan, Na'at. You do not adultery. Right? You do not adultery. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Right? As simple as that. That's the formal way. And it's still easier to understand. You don't really need commit there, right? You don't need to put commit. You know how English is. It just, they do a little too much. You don't need to put commit, right? You know, it will still be thou shalt not adultery. And you'll still get, okay, you shall not adultery. You shall not be adulterers, right? So, it's still the same. Athad, dawa, ayan, na'at. Adultery. Shalom, shalom. The water. I try to teach as thoroughly and clear as I can, right? So, a thought, dawa, ayan, adna. That's the formal way. We already went over the informal, and the formal is still closer to the English. Sometimes, English will throw in a whole, word for context. So you have commit here, right? But you don't need commit to know that you do not commit adultery, right? You already have do not adultery. You still get the understanding, and it's easier than la'a tha ana, right? La'a tha na. It's easier to understand than la'a tha na. You're saying a tha dawa ayan na. You do not adultery. It's almost like you don't do adultery, right? And that's more formal than the informal that we were doing earlier. So this is how you write it formally in a Lashawam qadash. So that's how you write it in the Lashawam qadash. You have a tha, dawa, which is do, ayun, na'at. So you have you do not adultery, or it's like you don't do adultery in English. So still like you get to understand it. Now I could put like you not do adultery and switch it around. That's your preference, right? You know, you not do adultery would still have, it will still click to the mind. But do is like something you would, I'm thinking you would put in the beginning, right? But you could switch it around and put a tha, ayan, dawa, na'at, which would mean you not do adultery. And you'll write it like this, right? So this is your preference right here. I'll figure out if I wanted to put it like this or not. So that right there would be you not do adultery. That's what it would be. So it will be up to you. You know, if we want to be more like close to English as we can, um, you know, I'll look more into the Lashawam Kadash and see about Dawa and where Dawa is, right? Because not is usually at the beginning, which will make more sense, right? Because when you deal with the informal, they put la'a for no, right? And that's at the beginning. So I will look at the Lashawam Kadash and see if no goes before the action, and it will make more sense for it to be I yun dawa na'at. So it'll make more sense for it to be atha you ayun not dawa do na'at, which is adultery. So good thing I caught myself, right? When I think like that, it kind of clicks because I've been over a lot of sentences where no is at the beginning. So it would make more sense to make it clear to put it before the action instead of after the action. So I kind of like how that goes right here. I kind of like how the formal way is right here. So take note. I like this being formal like this. Not do, and then whatever you're trying to commit. Not do whatever you're trying to commit, which right now is adultery, because it makes more sense that because a lot of Hebrew writings they just put la'ah at the beginning. At the beginning of the phrase, they'll put la'ah. So it'll make more sense to put ayun, which is not, right, in the beginning of the sentence. Now, you can still put la'ah, right, instead of ayun. I'm putting not because it's kind of like it's just theirs. So you can still put la'ah dawa ayun. I mean na'at, right? So you can still put atha la'ah dawa na'at instead of putting ayun, right? So you can still take that away and put atha la'ah dawa na'ah instead of Atha, Ayan, Dawa, Na'a. So one would it would be like this, right? It would be you know do adultery. You know do adultery. Now if you put Ayan in, which what's going over is you not do adultery, right? It still means the same thing. So those two words are interchangeable. But these three right here, dawa, and then the action, which is na'at, which is adultery, and then a thought, which is pertaining to somebody. You need those three. But you can interchange la'a and ayan for no and not. So remember that no and not, and then it's in this synchronization. The who is pertaining to, whether it's accepted or not, whether it's la'a or kan, you know, and then the action or the what I want to say this is like a pronoun, an adjective, right? Adjective, and then the action, right? So this is doing adultery. Do adultery. No, do adultery. You know, do adultery. You not do adultery. So you can interchange those when you're writing formally if you want. Whether you use la'a or ayan is really up to you. But if la'a sticks to you, because a lot of people, in the Hebrew community, they know these two words, kan and la'a, right? For yes and no. So if you write la'a, they'll understand it. So let's do Exodus 20 and 15. So Exodus 20 and 15, thou shalt not steal, right? So there we go. You have Exodus 20 and 15 right there. You got it. Thou shalt not kill. And then the formal way of writing it is Atha La'at Dawa Danab. So Atha La'at Dawa Danab would be you know do still. Right? That's why I said earlier, you can interchange wherever you want because it'll make more sense to say you do not steal. Right? So you can interchange those if you want. It'll still mean the same thing in pretty much in any synchronization between the two. Whether you want to put stop, stop, Uh, oh, yeah. You see, it still means the same thing, right? So you have atha la'a dawa ganab, you know do still, and atha dawa la'a ganab, you do not still, or you do know still, right? So it still kind of means the same thing. You can interchange the both these two right here without much difference. It won't be a change in a sentence or the meaning of the sentence or the point that it's getting to because the synchronization of the words. It'll pretty much mean the same. But if you want it to sound like it's because it sounds better, oh, you do not or no still, you can do that. But it still means the same if you put you know do still, right? It means the same thing. Now, how you put Exodus 20 and 15 in the Lashawam qadash formally, this is what? There you go again. So you have Atha Dawa La'a Ganab. You do know still or not still. If you put ayan in there, right? Ayan for not, right? You do not still or you do know still. It means the same thing. Whether you use ayan, whether you use ayan or la'a, it still means the same thing. No or not. Do not still, do no still. It still means the same thing. It's up to your preference. Some people are like, well, not sounds better to me. Well, use ayan. People will still understand. Or use la'a. It'll still get to the same point. It means the same thing. So, you have who it's pertaining to. You have dawa, which is the action, which is do. You have the negate. You have to negate and not the pro. You have to negate, which is no, or ayan, which is not. You have to negate. And then you have the action, which is ganab, which is still. So, well, you have the motion, basically, right? So, that's what you have right there. And that's Exodus 20 and 15, formally. You know, those are the informal and formal ways to write in the Lashawam qadash. You know, most high willing, that was real easy to understand. And just 1 second. So we went over Exodus 20 and 13, Exodus 20 and 14, and Exodus 20 and 15, formally and informally. We did it. We showed you the English. We showed you the transliteration, and we showed you in the Lashawam qadash in the paleo character. So, most High willing, I edified everybody. Thank you, everyone that was on here for your encouraging words, and those who suffered through all this teaching. This is your brother Ayen Yah out of ATL Atlanta, and I want to say shalom and catch me on the chariot.